Welcome to another deep dive with us. We're going to be exploring flow states,
Oh, yeah.
particularly how they impact learning. You know
Hmm.
that feeling when you're so engrossed in something that time just melts away?
Yeah.
We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what makes those flow states tick and
Okay.
even uncover how robotics can play a role.
Wow.
I know it sounds kind of out there, but trust me, this is going to be a fascinating ride.
Interesting.
We've got some really cool sources lined up, articles on educational psychology,
Okay.
research on flow in the classroom,
Uh-huh.
and even some unexpected perspectives on the benefits of educational robotics.
It really is fascinating how all these fields kind of come together.
Yeah,
We often think about learning just in terms of grades and test scores,
right.
but what if the real key to unlocking a student's true potential lies in understanding how to help them tap into those flow states?
Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
let's break down what we actually mean by flow. I don't know, when I think about flow, I kind of picture like someone whitewater rafting, like narrowly avoiding rocks.
Well, that's certainly one way to visualize it.
Uh-huh.
But in psychology, flow refers to a state of deep absorption in an activity
Okay.
where you lose track of time and you effortlessly achieve peak performance.
Hmm.
The term was actually coined by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Oh, okay.
But you don't need to remember that.
Huh.
Just think about a time when you were so engrossed in something
Yeah.
that everything else just seemed to fade away.
You know what, now that you mention it, that reminds me of when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah?
I used to spend hours painting, just completely lost in the process. It
Yeah.
felt almost magical, like time would just slip away.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of flow.
Wow.
And it's not just about feeling good either.
Right.
Flow has been linked to increased happiness,
Okay.
enhanced creativity,
Uh-huh.
and yes, even higher levels of achievement.
So it's like a superpower.
In a way, it is.
Uh,
So if you're looking to boost your well-being and reach your full potential,
mhm.
flow is definitely something you want to tap into.
This is where things get really interesting for me,
Okay.
because I'm wondering, how does this concept of flow fit into today's classrooms?
Yeah.
Are our schools really set up to help students find this ideal state of learning?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the answer is often no.
Mm.
There was a 2009 study from Indiana University.
Okay.
They surveyed over 40,000 high school students.
Wow.
And the results were pretty disheartening.
Oh, no.
Nearly half of them reported feeling bored in school every day,
Really?
and a significant number felt bored in every single class.
Oh, wow. Those statistics are pretty alarming.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if we're missing a huge opportunity here
Mm-hmm.
to make learning more engaging and more effective.
Right.
I mean, if so many students are bored, what does that say about how we're approaching education?
Well, it points to a potential overemphasis on grades and standardized testing. Alex Angel, a high school history teacher, puts it this way.
Okay.
He says, and I quote, "The power of the grade makes students appear to be being educated and reformed
Mm.
when maybe they are not."
So are we prioritizing performance over genuine engagement?
The valid concern.
Are good grades actually masking a lack of real learning?
That's a concern that's been raised by educational psychologist David Chernoff.
Okay.
He argues that rote memorization for tests
Right.
doesn't equal real learning.
Mm-hmm.
Cramming information just to pass a test
Yeah.
doesn't lead to the kind of deep understanding and retention
Mm-hmm.
that comes from true engagement.
Okay.
Real learning requires flow.
So it sounds like true learning goes beyond just memorizing facts.
Exactly.
You need to be actively engaged,
Yes,
curious, and
Uh-huh.
excited about the material.
precisely. And the research backs this up.
Oh, really?
Chernoff found that students who experienced flow in their high school science classes
Okay.
were more likely to choose science as their major in college, even more so than students who earned high grades.
Interesting.
It seems that engagement, not just achievement, is a strong predictor of future academic success.
So this is starting to paint a clear picture for me.
Good.
Flow isn't just some feel-good concept.
Right.
It actually impacts a student's future choices and success.
Exactly.
But what about those students who excel in the current system?
Yeah.
The ones who get straight A's,
Mm-hmm.
but might not necessarily be experiencing this flow we're talking about.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
We have to consider the potential downsides of achievement without engagement.
Okay.
Researchers Denise Pope and Jerusha Connor,
Mm-hmm.
they studied high-achieving students
Okay.
and found that the pressure to succeed without genuine interest
Uh-huh.
can lead to some pretty negative outcomes.
Like what?
Cheating,
Oh, wow.
stress,
Hmm.
burnout,
Yeah.
even depression.
That's scary.
It is.
We often praise those high-achieving students,
Right.
but are we overlooking the potential costs of their success?
It's a good question.
If they're not truly engaged in the process.
It highlights the importance of striking a balance.
Okay.
We need to foster a love of learning,
Right.
not just a drive to achieve.
So how do we actually create this environment of flow in the classroom?
That's the million-dollar question.
What can teachers do to foster this kind of deep engagement?
Well, that's where Chernoff's insights become really valuable.
Okay.
He identified several key factors that promote flow in learning environments.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, students need to have a sense of choice and control over what and how they learn.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you feel like you have a say in your learning,
Right.
you're more likely to be invested in the outcome.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that be hard to manage in a traditional classroom setting?
It certainly presents a challenge,
Yeah.
but it's not insurmountable.
Okay.
It could be as simple as offering choices within assignments
Uh-huh.
or allowing students to pursue projects related to their interests. The key is to shift from a purely teacher-directed approach
Mm-hmm.
to one that empowers students to be active participants in their learning.
Okay, so it's about giving students agency.
Exactly.
What else can teachers do to encourage flow?
Another key factor is relevance.
Okay.
Students are more likely to experience flow
Uh-huh.
when they can connect what they're learning to their own lives,
Yeah,
their goals, and their interests.
I can definitely relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember struggling with history in high school because it felt so disconnected from my life.
Yeah.
If we had explored historical events through the lens of something I was passionate about,
Right.
music or art,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I would have been much more engaged.
Exactly. It's about making those connections,
Yeah,
showing students how the subject matter relates to their world.
right.
And of course, teachers play a huge role in creating that flow-friendly environment.
Okay.
They need to provide the right balance of challenge and support,
Uh-huh.
pushing students just enough to keep them engaged
Right.
without overwhelming them.
So it's about finding that sweet spot
Yes.
where students feel challenged but not defeated,
Exactly.
where they feel capable of stretching their abilities and succeeding.
Precisely. And positive feedback
Okay.
and a strong rapport between teachers and students are crucial as well.
So it's not just about the content.
Right.
It's about creating a positive and supportive learning environment.
Yes.
Where students feel safe to explore and experiment.
Exactly.
But what about schools that are already designed with these flow principles in mind?
That's interesting.
Are there examples of schools that are doing this well?
Absolutely. Alternative school models,
Okay.
like Montessori schools,
Uh,
are specifically designed to foster flow.
really?
They emphasize student autonomy,
Okay.
self-paced learning,
Mm-hmm.
and hands-on exploration.
So students in Montessori schools have a lot of freedom
They do.
to choose what they want to work on
Yeah.
and how they want to approach it.
Exactly.
That sounds fascinating. Do we have any research to suggest that these alternative models
We do.
are actually effective in fostering flow?
Yes. Researchers Rathund and Sexton-Mahali,
Okay.
they studied Montessori and traditional middle school students
Okay.
and found that the Montessori students
Mm-hmm.
reported experiencing significantly more flow,
Wow.
more positive emotions,
Mhm.
higher levels of energy,
Mm-hmm.
and stronger internal motivation.
That's impressive.
They were also less distracted in class.
And it's not just Montessori schools,
Right.
after-school programs.
Yes.
And non-traditional schools often incorporate elements of these flow-friendly designs as well.
They do.
But is there a way to bring those benefits into more traditional classrooms?
That's a good question.
Could robotics possibly be part of the solution?
That's a thought-provoking question,
Yeah.
and one we'll explore in more depth after a short break.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
So before the break, we were talking about this connection between flow and robotics. It feels like a bit of a leap going from like the psychology of learning to robots in the classroom.
Yeah, it might seem that way at first.
So can you help me understand
Yeah.
how those two things actually relate?
Well, it all comes back to those key factors for creating flow.
Okay.
Remember we talked about choice and control
Right.
and relevance?
Yeah.
Well, educational robotics can actually hit all those marks.
So you're saying that building and programming robots can actually help students find that flow state in their learning?
Exact. Think of robotics as a way to bring learning to life.
Okay.
It's not just about sitting at a desk memorizing facts.
Right.
It's about hands-on experiential learning,
Mm-hmm.
where students can create and experiment and see their ideas come to fruition.
So it's like learning by doing.
Yes.
By actually building something tangible and seeing the results of your work.
Precisely. And it taps into that innate human desire to create, to build, to make things happen in the world.
But wouldn't that require a lot of technical expertise? Not every student is naturally inclined towards coding and engineering.
That's a common misconception.
Oh, okay.
Educational robotics isn't just about creating future engineers.
Right.
It's about developing critical 21st century skills
Okay.
that are valuable in any field.
Like what?
Problem-solving collaboration, critical thinking creativity.
Okay.
These are all skills that are honed through robotics, regardless of whether a student goes on to pursue a career in STEM.
So it's not just about the technical skills.
Yeah.
It's about the process, the way of thinking that robotics encourages.
Exactly. And let's not forget the fun factor.
Okay.
Robotics brings an element of playfulness to learning.
Okay.
It's like turning education into a game, a challenge to be conquered.
Yeah, I can see that.
And when learning feels like fun engagement, naturally follows,
Right.
which paves the way for those flow states to emerge.
So how does this actually look in a real classroom?
Well,
What are some examples of how robots are being used in schools today?
you'd be surprised at the variety. Some schools are starting as early as elementary school,
Wow.
using simple robots to teach basic coding concepts. Kids can program robots to move through mazes, draw shapes, even dance.
I can just imagine how excited those kids must be
Oh, yeah.
to see their code come to life.
Absolutely.
But what about older students?
Well,
How are robots being used in high school and beyond?
as students progress, the challenges become more complex.
Okay.
They might build robots that can interact with their environment, solve problems, or even compete in robotics competitions.
I've seen videos of those competitions.
Oh, yeah.
They're incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
The students are so dedicated and passionate about their robots.
They are.
It's like a whole other level of learning.
Exactly. And that's what we're aiming for. That level of engagement, that spark of passion
Right.
that makes students want to learn more, to push their boundaries, to see what they're capable of.
It's not just about building robots for the sake of building robots. It's about using robotics as a tool to explore other subjects
Exactly.
and bring them to life.
Imagine using robots in history class to recreate historical events,
Wow.
or in science class to conduct experiments or collect data.
Yeah.
The possibilities are truly endless.
Those are some really cool ideas. But let's be realistic here.
Yeah.
Incorporating robotics into education must come with some challenges, right?
Of course, one of the biggest hurdles is cost.
Okay.
Robots, especially the more sophisticated ones,
Right.
can be a significant investment for schools,
Yeah.
especially those with limited budgets.
That's a valid concern.
And then there's the issue of teacher training.
Oh, right.
Not all teachers are comfortable or familiar with robotics, especially those who haven't had much exposure to technology.
So professional development is key
It is.
to make sure that teachers have the skills and the confidence to effectively integrate robotics into their curriculum.
It's an investment, but the potential benefits are significant.
So it sounds like we're still in the early stages
Yeah.
of this robotics in education movement.
I would say so.
There's a lot of potential,
Right.
but also some challenges to overcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there are organizations and initiatives working to make robotics more accessible
Okay.
to all students, regardless of their background or socioeconomic status.
That's good.
And as technology continues to evolve, we can expect robots to become more affordable
Right.
and more user-friendly.
Which will make it even easier to integrate them into classrooms.
Exactly.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
But while robotics is an exciting development, it's important to remember that it's only one piece of the puzzle
Right.
when it comes to creating flow in education.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
So what about those students who aren't necessarily drawn to technology?
Yeah, that's a crucial point.
How do we ensure that they also have access to those flow-inducing learning experiences?
That's a great question, and it brings up an important point.
Okay.
Robotics is a fantastic tool,
Yeah,
but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
right.
We need a diverse range of educational approaches
Okay.
to cater to different learning styles and interests.
So while we've been focusing on robotics,
Hmm.
are there other ways to foster flow in education
Yeah.
that might apply more broadly?
Absolutely.
Are there signs that the education system itself is shifting to prioritize engagement and intrinsic motivation?
I'm glad you asked that because there are some promising trends emerging.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Well, for one thing, the National Science Foundation,
Okay.
a major funding source for scientific research,
Mm-hmm.
has started to include data on student motivation in its reports.
That's interesting.
It is.
It sounds like they're recognizing that engagement and interest are just as important as
Yeah.
test scores and academic achievements.
Precisely. And there's a growing body of research that supports this shift.
Okay.
Remember researcher Judith Harakovich?
Yeah.
She made a powerful statement.
Oh.
She said, "It's clear that what drives career preference is interest, not academic performance."
That makes perfect sense.
It does.
When you're genuinely passionate about something,
Right.
you're naturally more likely to pursue it, to
Yeah.
excel in it, to make it your life's work.
Exactly. And that's what we need to nurture in education.
Okay.
That spark of passion, that intrinsic motivation
Mhm.
that drives students to learn for the love of learning,
Right.
not just for the sake of a grade or a test score.
It's about empowering students to become lifelong learners.
Yes.
Who are curious, engaged, and excited to explore the world around them.
Exactly. But let's face it,
Yeah.
changing a system as large and complex as education is a monumental task.
It's not going to happen overnight.
It's definitely a process.
Right.
But the fact that we're having these conversations,
Uh-huh.
that there's a growing awareness of the need for change
Yeah.
is a positive sign.
I agree.
And there are educators and innovators out there who are leading the way,
Okay.
experimenting with new approaches, and demonstrating that it is possible to create learning environments
Right.
that are both engaging and effective.
Like those alternative school models we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
They're showing that there are other ways to approach education.
Yes.
Ways that can tap into students' natural curiosity and desire to learn.
And even within the traditional system,
Okay.
there are teachers who are finding creative ways
Mm-hmm.
to incorporate more student-centered learning,
Uh-huh.
to create more opportunities for choice and autonomy,
Right.
and to foster that sense of flow in their classrooms.
It's about finding those pockets of innovation and supporting them,
Absolutely.
spreading the word and showing others that change is possible.
Exactly.
But it's not just about the teachers.
Right.
It's also about empowering students to be active participants in their education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Students need to feel empowered to advocate
Mm-hmm.
for the kind of learning experiences that resonate with them,
Right.
that ignite their passions, and that set them on a path of lifelong learning and discovery.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the psychology of flow
Mm-hmm.
to the evolution of robotics and the future of education.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey.
It has. I feel like I'm starting to see the connections between all these seemingly disparate pieces.
That's the power of the deep dive.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's about exploring connections,
Right.
making sense of complex ideas,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately empowering you to apply those insights to your own life.
Exactly. But before we wrap things up,
Sure.
I want to circle back to one key takeaway
Okay.
that really resonated with me.
Okay. What is it?
It's this idea that engagement is the key to unlocking true learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough to just memorize facts or get good grades.
Right.
We need to find ways to help students connect with the material,
Yeah.
to experience that state of flow
Uh-huh.
where they're fully immersed in the learning process and time seems to melt away.
I couldn't agree more. That brings us back to the question we posed earlier.
Okay.
Can robotics spark flow in education?
Based on what we've explored today, I think the answer is a resounding yes.
I think so too.
But it's not just about the robots themselves.
Yeah.
It's about how they're used,
Yes.
about the learning environment they're integrated into,
Yeah.
and about the shift in educational philosophy that needs to accompany them.
Precisely. Robotics can be a catalyst for creating those flow-inducing learning experiences.
Okay.
But it's only one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
There's so much more to consider when it comes to fostering a love of learning.
And that's what we'll explore in more depth after a quick break. Wow, after exploring all these ideas about flow states and learning, I'm looking at education in a whole new light.
Yeah, it's amazing how connecting all these different perspectives, like psychology, education, robotics,
Right.
can really shift your whole understanding of something as familiar as learning.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's distill what we've learned
Awesome.
about flow and its impact on education.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Okay, well, first and foremost, we need to remember what flow is.
Right.
Why it's so important, not just for learning, but for well-being.
Right.
It's that state of deep engagement.
Uh-huh.
You lose track of time, you're absorbed in the task at hand, and you're performing at your peak.
Yeah, and we discovered that those flow states aren't just happy accidents.
No.
There's something we can cultivate,
We can.
both in ourselves and in others.
Exactly, but creating those flow-friendly environments in traditional classrooms
Right.
can be a challenge.
Yeah.
The emphasis on grades and standardized testing can sometimes overshadow
Yeah.
the joy of learning.
Right. It becomes all about performance.
Right, and it makes it harder for students to tap into those flow states.
Yeah, we saw how that pressure to achieve
Right.
without genuine engagement can lead to some pretty negative outcomes.
Yeah.
Stress, burnout, even cheating.
It's a reminder that true learning is about more than just checking boxes
Yes.
and getting good grades.
It's about fostering a love of learning for learning's sake. Absolutely.
And one way to do that is to look at alternative school models,
Yes.
like Montessori schools,
Yes.
that are designed with those flow principles in mind.
Right. They emphasize student autonomy,
Yeah.
self-paced learning, and hands-on exploration.
Those are all key ingredients
Yeah.
for creating flow.
Exactly.
And it was really eye-opening to see the research
Yes.
that backs up the effectiveness
Yeah.
of these alternative models.
Sure.
The fact that students in Montessori schools reported
Yes.
experiencing significantly more flow and stronger internal motivation
Yes.
is a testament to the power of creating those learning environments that are conducive to flow.
Absolutely. And while not everyone has access to those alternative models,
Right?
we also saw that there are educators
Yeah.
within the traditional system that are finding creative ways
Yeah.
to bring those flow-friendly principles into their classrooms.
It's about finding those pockets of innovation,
Yes.
amplifying them, and showing that change is possible.
Exactly.
And then there's robotics.
Oh, yes. I'll admit I was skeptical at first,
Understandable.
but I'm starting to see how robotics can be a powerful tool for bringing those flow states into education.
It's about taking learning beyond textbooks and lectures,
Yeah.
making it hands-on, experiential, and engaging.
Right, giving students the opportunity to create, to experiment, to
Yeah.
see their ideas come to life literally.
Exactly.
It's amazing to think that kids as young as elementary school
I know.
are learning to code and program robots.
It's incredible.
And as they get older, they can take on even more complex challenges,
Okay, so-
building robots that can interact with their environment,
Yes.
solve problems, and even compete in those incredible robotics competitions.
Exactly. And while robotics is a fantastic tool,
Yeah,
it's important to remember that it's just one piece of the puzzle.
right,
We need a multifaceted approach to education,
right.
one that provides a diverse range of learning experiences
Mhm.
to cater to different interests.
Learning styles.
Yes, learning styles and passions.
So it's not about finding a single magic bullet.
Right.
It's about creating an educational ecosystem where every student can find their niche, their spark, their flow.
I love that there's spark there flow.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing that the quest for flow extends beyond the classroom.
It does.
It's something we can cultivate in all aspects of our lives.
Absolutely. Our work, our hobbies, our relationships.
That's a really powerful thought.
It is.
It makes you realize that learning isn't just something we do in school.
Right.
It's a lifelong journey.
It is. And flow is the fuel
Yeah.
that keeps us engaged, motivated, and constantly evolving.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay. I like it.
How might you incorporate the principles of flow,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through robotics or other means,
Yes.
into your own learning or work?
Good question.
How might you create those flow-friendly environments
Yeah.
for yourself and for those around you?
I love that question.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes.
Share your insights, experiences, and ideas with us.
Please do.
Let's keep this conversation going because the quest for flow is an ongoing journey,
It is.
one that can lead to greater fulfillment, deeper learning,
Mhm.
and a life filled with passion and purpose.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive
Of course.
into flow states and education.
It was my pleasure.
We hope this episode has sparked some new ideas
Yeah.
and inspired you to find your flow both inside and outside the classroom.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those flow states flowing.
Keep flowing.